map out a big syllabus for an e-course with different modules, or you might have in mind to build a sort of a promotional marketing branding piece for your organization. Um, just like with fiction filmmaking, nonfiction can involve scripts and a laborious development and pre-production process, but the two different forms, nonfiction and fiction, really uh, depart from each other when you get into recording. And the number one thing I'll say is that fiction filmmaking is very much an exercise in perfectionism. You have to think about costumes, locations, actors, people memorizing their lines. Everything is very, very tightly planned. Sometimes that production environment is somewhat militaristic in nature because everything has to be planned to a T. And then once you get into the editing phase, it can be a little easier for an editor, fiction filmmaking, because the production phase is so structured that editing is, I mean, I guess we can kind of simplify it and say it's almost like paint by numbers because they're editing to a script, right? And they're taking the best takes and putting them on the editing timeline and bada bing. Nonfiction editing is a different beast, very much so, especially with documentary storytelling, because you don't know what you're going to get when you pick that camera up. Life is unpredictable. Um, you have a little bit more control if you're dealing with voiceovers or if you've really mapped out your e-course or you're doing a promotional piece that's pretty scripted. But nevertheless, with nonfiction filmmaking, it's a little bit more of an adventure that requires more adaptability. Today, because we only have an hour and I really am just going to fly through like the most cursory interview of this craft, I'm going to focus on short form promotional and marketing type of filmmaking or visual storytelling for social impact. Presuming, given the nature of the Miller Center Accelerator program, that many of you are founders or, in the management team of mission-driven early stage companies. You might be here because you want to learn how to visually communicate what you guys are doing. So so let's just start with the building blocks, the five stages of filmmaking. Filmmaking begins with development, your conceptual stage. This is the fun part where you get to dream, right? You think about a script or a story. And when I say story, I want to specify that I don't necessarily mean like a person on a hero's journey. A story can simply mean a beginning, a middle, and an end with a call to action, right? If we're talking about a branding video, like this is our mission. This is how we're carrying out. This is what you can do to be involved. That's a story, right? So we're going to hold that word very lightly when we're talking about story today. The pre-production phase is what it sounds like. This is the organizational planning, scheduling, calendar, pulling together your materials phase, figuring out where you're going to meet, what time, who's going to film, what gear you're going to use, stuff like that. When you're into production, that's where you're recording everything, both film and audio. Post-production is the editing phase. Well, that's sort of post-production phase one is putting all your recorded assets together in a timeline. Post-production phase two is when you start attaching music or graphics, animation, stuff like that. And then finally, you've worked so hard creating your piece. Once you've polished it, you want eyeballs on that bad boy, right? Filmmaking is an act of communication, but the act of communication has to be cannot be fulfilled unless it's received by somebody. So someone's got to receive this thing that you've been making. So I'll talk just a little bit about how to get eyeballs on your piece. So, visual storytelling workflow. So, I want to talk about this in kind of six waves. I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about the importance of consistent branding. Since I'm going to focus today on short form, sort of marketing promotional videos, it is super, super important. And I don't know what kind of workshops or training you guys have had on this issue, but I just want to talk a little bit about branding. Does it matter and why? That's the first little moment I have to get to know you guys a little. So I am going to stop sharing for a moment and ask, why do you guys think branding matters and why? Or anything steps you've taken to think about your brand. What even is that? Go ahead and pop your mic on. I don't, you don't have to wait to be called.
Yeah, I
and it's
can.
okay. Yeah, go ahead, Selena. Okay.
Yeah, I think brand is very important because that's the first thing people see in your company, and it can tell a story in itself. So if you are branded in a way that's like Miller Center, like we used to have a globe in our logo, like so people know um I don't know, we service people all over the world and we're a diverse community. So yeah, I think it can be symbolic and can tell a story by itself, and that's just the brand without you saying anything. And it has some symbolism in it too. Um, yeah.
Yes, definitely. Okay, we've got something up in the chat here. It conveys your identity. It's a differentiator. That's really important. It conveys your unique service, right, that you're providing. Um, Not only setting you apart from other companies, but helping people recognize your brand, right? And what is it, this psychological research saying that you don't really learn something or fully remember or recognize it until you've been exposed to it at least 3 times. So a logo, for instance, doesn't really register for people until that brand keeps popping up into their eyeballs. So I really recommend if you haven't done this work, to start thinking about your brand of your mission-driven organization, that this is it's worth your time to make this a priority. Let me get back in. There we go. Okay. So I wanted to try a little game with you guys. I was wondering if this evokes a certain brand or feeling. What's popping into your mind when you look at this? Anything?
Oh, I think it's Coca-Cola
Why do you think so?
because it's the shape of the bottle in the middle.
Bravissima. Yeah, exactly. It's Coca-Cola. So what is this saying? What's the experience we're supposed to have here, do you think?
I think you can drink Coca-Cola uh, with your meals, and it's like a companion.
Did we lose you, Jen?
Jen, I think, yeah, he may have frozen. That makes absolute sense, Ingrid. I love that. You were quicker than I was to catch that was Coca-Cola.
Oh, Jen, can
I'm
you?
so sorry. Yes, I dropped. I'm not sure what happened. That was very strange. That's never happened to me before. Hold on. Let me just get back to the regularly planned. How odd. Sorry about that, folks. In all these years, I never had a Zoom meeting quit on me. All right, let's get back into it. Well, there I was chattering on about Coca-Cola.
Ingrid White
Um,
had some
tr-
great insights on that too. I don't know if you
ah,
got her.
I did not catch that, unfortunately. Well, you guys did, and I don't want to. I don't. I'm. That's you guys are the important folks here. We can go on to the next. Maybe the next slide here. I was wondering if anybody happens to know which brand this is. Coffee, coffee, coffee.
Maybe Starbucks?
Yeah, you got it. Um, I don't know about you guys, but putting the logo on there for me starts to make a difference in how I'm experiencing these images. Does anybody have that same experience?
Yeah, the coffee was clear, and I guess the green now that you put the logo up, but I would have only guessed Starbucks because, it's such a big brand in coffee, but it wasn't really screaming Starbucks to me.
It wasn't. It wasn't indeed. But once you have the logo on here, it completely changes what you're looking at because at least for me, I'm like, oh, right, because they write your name on your cup.
No.
And Starbucks is all about personalization, special for you. And suddenly the meaning of the image completely changes because it ties into all of my associations with Starbucks and my memories and my skepticism, of course. Um, but there's a whole world of experience in this attempt in the complexity of conveying a brand. It's not just a logo, it's an experience, right? It's a world of memory, of association. The color makes a difference. It gives us personality, identity differentiation, as someone noted. A brand is not just visual, right? So it's not just a logo and a color scheme and a font choice. It's also non-visual. So you're looking here at the Safari Films brand standards. The reason I'm talking about this stuff is that it will make your visual storytelling so much easier. And once you do more than one, they will be so much more visually related and they'll start to build such a more coherent experience amongst your audience that I highly recommend, if you haven't yet, that you develop a style guide with your logo, your colors, and your fonts spelled out right there with your little hex code saying exactly what the colors are. So anyone designing anything is able to have a quick reference to live right within that brand universe. Um, so this is an important part of the development process, and you may or may not have done this in your journey of your in the formation process of your organization. Um, but that is the first thing I want to say is that getting your brand straight is a really, really big part of the development process. So in terms of film development, there are um, there are a number of questions that you'll want to be asking yourself. What do you want to make? Why do you want to visually communicate? What experience or call to action do you want your audience to respond to? I can't stress to you how important it is for you to think about this stuff now instead of just plunging into a cool idea and then later having to think about the marketing of it. This, like everything that you do in your company, the more you plan on the front end and the more organized and clear you are on the front end, the easier everything else will go. So you want to ask what the goal is, who is it for, define your target, like everything with marketing. Where are they going to find your video? So this leads us into the third question. And the reason, where are they going to find it, always leads us to what are the specs. So for instance, if you're saying, oh, they're going to find it on TikTok or Instagram. Okay, cool. But TikTok and Instagram have what we call a vertical aspect ratio, where the videos are kind of longer and taller, as opposed to YouTube or your website, an embedded video on a website, where the aspect ratio is what we call horizontal, where it's longer side to side than it is up to down. This is a fundamental decision because it will determine everything about how you're filming your piece. Basically, if you're going to use your smartphone as a camera, which is totally legit, I'll talk about that more. Which direction are you going to point it, right? So deciding from the front whether you're going to be on TikTok and Insta or on YouTube, on Facebook and website, or if you want to create the possibility of both, that will also change how you film. Also, the second question, and what are the specs? Who's on the team and what are their skills? We'll talk a little bit. This leads into the fourth question. In terms of the creative development process, what is the story? What's the beginning, the middle, and end of what you're going to do? All of these questions are kind of deeply interwoven with each other. What's the beginning and middle and end? Well, that goes back to question number one. What do you want to make? Why do you want to make it? So this kind of conceptual work can be very fun, and is the more you do it, the easier the whole process is going to be. Um, I really recommend, highly recommend, that you don't sink a bunch of money into your first stab at visual storytelling, because I bet you have a lot of tools and resources that are readily available. This is a craft that can be unbelievably expensive, and this is also a craft that can be surprisingly micro budget or no budget. And I'll talk a little bit about that more, how to make that so. So, I want to do an exercise with you guys, actually, just to give you a few minutes to think. Maybe you could drop in on the chat here. Let's start with number one. What are your resources? Do you have people who know how to film, good writers? Do you have a cool location at your fingertips? Either you living in a physically beautiful place, or your friend lives in like a super rad apartment with cool architecture. Do you know someone with a more recent iPhone? That's a good camera, or actually a Google Pixel, also a very good camera. Anything that you can think of that will be an asset to your creation. Do you have a friend with one of those inflatable T-Rex costumes? You know, really, literally anything can be an asset to your creative video project. A friend who has a collection of Victorian gowns, like a friend with a rad spiral staircase, somebody with a cool pool, somebody with a Porsche. I wanted to see, I'm hoping what I'm going to do is stop sharing right now and just look in the chat and see if anybody, if you guys want to tell me if you guys have any kind of resources at the tip of your fingertips that you can draw on right now. Someone who knows how to film, a good writer, an idea for a video you want to make. That's a resource, right? That's something to build on. Start where you are. This is rule number one with micro budget visual storytelling. You don't have to go out and buy stuff. If you look around at your desk, you know, I've got all my little my little ponies and my inspiring little things that can sprout into stories anywhere I look. You probably have that too, things that are sort of mission oriented, heavily symbolic, visually pleasing. Making a brainstorm of these sorts of resources can help with the creative development process to get you on the road of figuring out what you want to make your video about. And then this question of what's the sweet spot? What are that concentric space between your project mission, the call to action, and the thing that you want to make, and the resources that you can call into play here? What's that sweet concentric spot? And that is where your creation can emerge from, and you can start to think more concretely about the video you want to make. So the development process is the brainstorming process. It's very fun. You want to make some very fundamental decisions around whether you want a script-based video, which will help you control the production process a little bit more, or you want to do what we call vérité. It's a French word, just means the truth. Truth-based, nonfiction, unplanned filmmaking, picking the camera up and filming what's happening. It gives you a little less control, but also opens you up to interesting, spontaneous things. Or you can do both. Like in sociology, when we're interviewing someone, it might be structured or a semi-structured interview. You kind of let the moment lead you forward, but you have some ideas of what you're hoping people will say or do, and you can prompt them. So there are lots of places you can derive your ideas from, whether they be current events, a problem that your organization is helping to solve, either a problem out in the world or a problem that your organization itself faces. A demonstrative vignette. Maybe there's a story of something that happened out in the world or within your organization that kind of might offer something to somebody. The brainstorming space for your video is it's a fun stage because you don't have to actually deal with reality yet. So anyway, what I'm hoping is that as I'm talking through this stuff, like little idea seeds are starting to sprout in your imagination. I'm belaboring this point again. I've already done it a little bit. It's very important to think about whether you want to work out of the fiction space or the nonfiction space. Plenty of promotional marketing, branding videos work out of the fiction space, a script-based thing with an actor, with a set, with a costume. Of course, nonfiction filmmaking sometimes also deals with costumes. This third image over the young woman sitting in front of the orange curtain. This is a recreation scene in a documentary film. So this is a space where it's nonfiction filmmaking with a little bit of fiction woven in order to sort of like evoke a certain a character in the protagonist's life who's not with us anymore. So filmmaking, you can go in lots and lots of different directions, but I wanted to sort of familiarize you with these conversations, just to sort of plant some seeds in your head. If you want to go the nonfiction route, you also have lots of different choices to make. For example, if you're like, I'm going to interview people about how they're interacting with my mission. Well, you can interview people in lots of different environments with lots of different formats. They can be like, here's a little screen capture of a dude on the upper left-hand side, talking about like a winery that he works on. So he's obviously on the grounds of the organization that he's employed by. And you can, see the activities of that organization happening in the background. He's wearing a mic, so this is probably a pretty formal, perhaps a structured interview with questions that were planned out from the beginning. You could also have sort of an informal type of interview. Upper right hand side, you guys see just two dudes walking down the street having a casual conversation. This is also a wonderful way to start collecting material. If you have the population that you serve, for example, in your organization, you might have them sort of walk around casually and talk about experiences that they've had interacting with your programming. You can interview people in their own home environment, or you can put up a backdrop or, rent a more formal interview space. It all depends on the aesthetic that you're going for, which of course ties back into your brand identity, right? Um, so visual information, they say whatever, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Each of these environments contains lots of information about your company and about the projects you're embarking on and about the message that you're trying to convey. So the more deliberate you can be in your development process, where you're trying to understand uh, what you want to do, the better that's going to be for you. So I wanted to also kind of turn a question over to you guys. What do you guys feel like are the pros and cons within your organization of doing something scripted or fictional versus not so structured, not so scripted, not so controlled? What can you see might be the pros and cons? Let me stop sharing so I can see your thinking caps spinning.
I think for Miller Center, the nonfiction work and storytelling goes a long way because it can tell the story of what our entrepreneurs are doing and the great work they do. And it's not a fictitious thing. They're making this real change in the world. And yeah, using the nonfiction storytelling can kind of capture that. And it kind of just gives them the facts of the realities of the world and how you can solve these global issues.
Yes, that's a really strong point. I think there's something very organic. And when we're talking about mission-driven visual storytelling for social impact, we want to talk about real people on the ground, real missions being carried out, real staff people, real campaigns, real target populations. That can be much more relatable and inspiring. Let's see, Doug Hewitt said scripted might require less editing sometime later because you say exactly what you want. This is very true. Like I was mentioning before, editing something that's been scripted is a little paint by numbers situation. You kind of just lay it all down. It can speed the process along. It can make post-production much more efficient. This is really important. Unscripted meat does require more technical editing, indeed, or you have to go back into production because you didn't get what you need to bring the story home, right? So there's like a gray area where you're bouncing back and forth between editing and production, sometimes with nonfiction work. Julian?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jen. Nice to meet you.
Good
In
to
this case, I think for considering going to our organization, we think that going for not a fiction content makes our message even stronger. We're in our case, we're facing the climate change situation with our different programs. So if we communicate real situations with our communities, and that's what we are trying to involve with some different situations that are related with climate change problem now. If we show something that is real, makes our message even stronger. So that's why
Yeah.
we're trying to make everything related with results, of course, but also always considering that impact in people. Because if we start thinking about that, is what shows a real problem that can be at least create some consciousness in our communities.
Yes, exactly. Okay, good. That's, I mean, it's a huge, huge thing, right? It's like staying embedded in the real world is a big deal. Yeah. Mahuena, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but go ahead.
Yes, it's Mawina. So it's the same for me too. With our company, it's a social impact company. So we are intentional about what we are putting out there. So we go with the scripted form when we are doing our videos. We want to have and know what we want to put out there before we put the camera on. And even with interviews, so we draft the questions before asking them. We don't go there is a verite way. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Yep, absolutely. Scripted can give you more control over your messaging. This is no small thing, nothing to sniff at. It can be really frustrating when you're out filming and you've got hours of footage and like n nothing ha happened that you know how to work with. So that can be really frustrating. Sunday.
Actually, just you guys just spoke about my answer. We've done both, and I think some of the advantages about unscripted for us has just been trying to get a very natural feel out of the people's responses and recording. Of course, it comes back to editing, and it can take hours or a lot of work, a lot of thinking around it. We've gone for scripted as well, especially for just like really targeted marketing and messaging that we
Mhm.
want. So. That's been easy. So we both have like social impact and a side that's more like sales. So you really need your scripted side, your short, powerful messages, but already scripted. Thank you.
Yeah, good. This is very powerful that you can describe experiences of both. I will say that in my experience, scripted and fiction visual storytelling can be a lot more expensive and a lot more stressful because you have to be very well organized to get everything collected in order to throw it all together in the editing bay. Although, since it is more expensive and more stressful, it can also be a lot more efficient and much more controlled. You get exactly what you want, right? Arca just said we prefer having a visual storyboard prepared even for unscripted videos so we know what we want to guide us during production. Yes, great. I'll talk a little bit more about that. You know, we say we make documentaries 3 times. We make it in our heads during the development process. We make it when we start filming and everything doesn't go the way that we wanted it to. And then we make it again in post-production when you're trying to like put something together out of what you ended up filming and you don't have what you needed and you have to sort of invent some stuff. So you have to be very adaptable and open-minded and creative in the documentary filmmaking process. Of course, in the fiction filmmaking process as well. But I guess I prefer documentary filmmaking because for me it's the spiritual modality of adaptability and spontaneity demanded by nonfiction filmmaking is like very pleasing to me artistically, although it can go on and on and on and on and require like unending fundraising, and it can be a very long, protracted process. Documentary can be very inefficient unless you can predict the future. So let's see if we can do that. So, okay, I'm going to push on. So I'm happy to hear from the answers. I can divine that there are people who have experience doing this stuff. So thanks for wading through the section where I was kind of speaking a little bit more to folks who hadn't had an experience. Sure, we have all sorts of levels of exposure to this craft in here. I just want to mention that in your development process, a really, really useful tool, whether you're doing, especially with your nonfiction video making, is an AV script, audio video script. It's simply a 2-column script that is useful in the development process, where on the audio side, you might kind of sketch out a script. Whether or not you have a script, you might imagine what people might be saying. And then in the video column, you sketch out like the visual process of what's happening. It can give you, it's the first process of basically it's a paper version of the thing that you want to make. And it's an important asset in the development process. Moving out into pre-production. So you've got your concept, you know what your call to action is, you've decided where is it going to live on TikTok? Is it going to live on YouTube? Is it going to be something that you want to put into film festivals? That's possible. There's film festivals for promotional marketing content now. There's film festivals for web series, for short documentaries, of course, for short films as well. So once you've figured all that stuff out, now you gotta start kicking the can down the road. So this is when we enter pre-production, the process of planning your film project. Your ideas actually have been formed, developed, and organized, but now you need to get really concrete and think about, even with nonfiction filmmaking, locations, props, timelines, interviews, scenery, interesting symbolic storytelling moments or objects. You have to plan it all, because you just never know what's going to happen, on the day of production. Somebody might have a sore throat, your batteries might be running out, stuff like this. So you have to be super well organized. Um, we don't have time for me to belabor all of the things that one needs to keep track of in the pre-production moment. Um, but you can send me questions, or you can also avail yourself of our low cost, no budget documentary filmmaking e-course if you like. And but I'll make these slides available to Karen and Suleiman at the Miller Center too, if you want to review them. But this is basically a long list of things that you'll need to be ready to think about during your pre-production process. Um, I find that I almost like one of the most important things to deal with is production calendar. Who can show up on what day? I mean, you guys are founders and management. You know all about scheduling nightmares, but this is a really important part of the process. And I will keep talking about all this stuff as we go forward. Oops, what did I skip there? Oops. Oh, we're going into production already. Right on. Okay, good. Production. This is where everything is finally recorded based on what you came up with in the development phase. Just know that if you've never done this before, or if you've only done it a few times and the result was like, okay, that this craft is a journey that can last for decades. It takes time to find the gear that works for you. We're living in an amazing, amazing prosumer equipment moment where everyone is carrying around amazing cameras in their pocket all day long. But it takes time. It takes time to even learn how to use your smartphone in the right way. As a low and no budget filmmakers know that there are plenty of tools and tricks so you can engage right away to create video that looks and sounds good, but it does take some patience. You don't. I've sometimes had interns when they picture themselves interning at a production company, they picture red carpets and cranes and helicopters, and then they're showing up, and I'm like, nope, you have to learn how to hold the camera still. Which didn't even occur to them. That was the building block. So keep it simple. Don't stress out. This is all very doable. I have, a 12-year-olds in my life who can like make amazing videos with their thumb in 30 seconds. So we can do it too. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about gear because that can be an intimidating and mystifying category. Like I was saying, we are living in an amazing prosumer equipment moment where you probably have ready access to a camera that is really going to do the job. The iPhone and the Google Pixel and the Samsung, all of these companies, there's tons and tons of different, cell phone companies. They have just incredible cameras. So don't feel like you have to go out and buy some fancy Canon thing. You just don't. You can, of course, be my guest, but you don't have to. Don't let your lack of professional cameras stop you from trying to do this. I want to talk about audio a little bit as well, but I think I'm going to spend a little bit more time on cameras real quick. Obviously, this is an online workshop. I've only got, such and such a, 15, 20 more minutes to talk to you guys. So I can't teach you how to use your camera, but I just want to tell you some very, very basic things to put in your thinking cap. If you can learn how to do a few things, very simple, straight shots, you can do some very, very competent video making. If you spend a little time, a Google image away, or a YouTube video away, you can watch very entertaining, extremely educational, and in fact, I find them to be endlessly entertaining even after decades of studying this craft, videos about different types of camera shots, camera angles, and camera movements to understand how, when a subject is placed in a frame, we call this frame composition or mise en scène, putting into place, determines an audience member's experience of what's on screen. You can convey a lot of information with a choice between a close-up on somebody's face versus seeing their whole entire body in an environment can really change the visual information that is being conveyed. So you want to think about how you're using your camera. And again, it just takes practice. So I really, if you're very new to this, to thinking about frame composition, um, literally Google or YouTube shots and angles. And it'll just immediately open your world up to the visual grammar, as we say in filmmaking, of different kinds of shots and angles and what they convey. And another thing, really simple thing I wanted to tell you that will completely transform your camera work more than anything. It's a very simple, very powerful tool called the rule of thirds. If you imagine any screen split into a grid of thirds, so we've got 3 horizontal thirds and 3 vertical thirds, and there are so these little kind of cross hatches where the grids meet. The most balanced and aesthetically pleasing shots usually land on these marks. Here's a collection of rule of thirds. If you start to follow the rule of thirds and how you're positioning your image capturing instrument, i.e., your camera, whether it be a phone or a real camera, it'll transform your frame composition and make it look more professional overnight. This is the simplest thing you can do to shoot better. And in fact, actually, while I've got you here, I'm just going to show you, I'm going to show documentary interviews. I'm assuming you can see my screen right now. I'm just going to go to Google Image real quick. And you can see a documentary filmmaker worth their salt is thinking about the rule of thirds in their interview setting. Faces are always, almost always falling on one of these grid lines. And you can see it creates a pleasing angle. You might have someone dead center. This is an intense shot. Navalny, I don't know if you guys know this documentary, but this guy is dead center, and it creates an emotional intensity where you feel like you want to lean in. It feels almost conspiratorial or confessional in nature. This is kind of more standard sort of professional. What is it called? Anyway, the word is escaping me, is sort of like a corporate type of video, promotional video setting in an office. Here, Bruce Springsteen is over on the third. I want to say sometimes if you're more advanced as a filmmaker too, you might purposefully violate the rule of thirds. I don't know if you guys have seen 13th, an amazing documentary, which is about it's about uh, racism, xenophobia, the war against drugs, rooted in the 13th Amendment of the US Constitution. A lot of her characters are not on the rule of thirds because they're talking about the marginalization and disappearance of African American people in the United States context. So they're kind of sliding off the screen here. This is an advanced cinematography choice. I recommend you master your rule of thirds before you start to play with it more symbolically. But in any case, I just wanted to sort of give you a sense of how loyal cinematographers are to the rule of thirds when they're filming something. And that's something you can start doing right away. Another really important feather to have in
There
your
is a
cap.
question in the chat.
Oh, there is? Great. Maybe, hold on, how do I get to my chat? Stop sharing. When shooting vertical, how much of the body are you keeping in the shot for an interview? Well, so that is there are infinite different kinds of shots um, that you can choose from, right? And it completely depends on what's the message that you want to send. So what I would do in order to sort of come up with different options um, is go to the Sphinx, Google the Sphinx, and look for vertical shots or anyone doing a sort of more vertical aspect ratio is what we're talking about here. And no, that didn't get me where I wanted to be. But anyway, what I'm trying to say, just so I can cover everything I need to cover, is that looking at how other people have handled vertical shots and what kind of shots varieties are available in a vertical aspect ratio is how I get my ideas. So you can see there's a different emotional flavor with like a close-up or an ultra close-up or a bust shot or a full body shot. It just completely depends on what message you want to send and what looks good in the moment as well, right? Um, so sorry to be so vague in that answer, but the big answer is it depends on what you're trying to do. Right? So, for example, if I were trying to make this choice for my own video, I would probably watch a lot of tutorials. Like, this is another thing I want to say to you guys is tutorials are your friend. I've been doing this for 2.5 decades. I still constantly consume tutorials, especially because in technological arts like this, techniques are and trends are constantly advancing. So to keep abreast around how to answer questions like this and how to think about this stuff, I'm constantly consuming these kinds of tutorials. Optimizing vertical video composition with the rule of thirds. There you go. So hopefully that answer is kind of helpful. Here, how the vertical film movement wants to upend the way we see cinema. So people are starting to do real filmmaking with vertical aspect ratio stuff on YouTube. So this is no longer just something that teenagers are doing. So that was kind of an all sorts of an answer, but hopefully that's useful. Stock footage, I want to mention this is really important in terms of having arrows in your quiver. Don't feel like you need to film everything that you want to use. Stock footage is an amazing way to enhance your videos, and there are plenty of resources for royalty-free stock photos. My favorite is Pexels, actually. So let's say, I don't know, I want to make a video and I need a moment that conveys like strength and power, and I want it to be represented by a tiger, but I don't have the budget to fly to a place or get access to a real, actual tiger. I'm going to go over to Pexels, my favorite stock footage site, and I'm going to look at all this amazing free footage of tigers that I can go ahead and download. I can import it directly to Canva, which is a fabulous editing system. Look at this. So much good free stuff of all sorts of, I mean, it doesn't have to be tigers. It can be sort of like birthdays or whatever it is you need. I assure you that Pexels is going to give you some interesting ideas. And by the way, this is a great tool in the development process as well to get some ideas. And Pexels will give you vertical aspect ratio or, horizontal aspect ratio or vertical aspect ratio. If you need a crowd celebrating, if you need fireworks exploding, whatever it is, you can go to Pexels, or the other one I really like is Pixabay, a very nice stock footage website where you can just use the search bar, go to videos, ask for, I don't know, books, let's say, whatever it is, and you can find a bunch of great stuff to use that will help you also conserve money in your budget, which is really important. Allora, let's keep pushing forward. High quality audio, guys. This is so important. If you were my filmmaking students, we would spend a lot of time, and I do with my kids, emphasizing that high quality audio is more important than good image quality. People lose this question, you lose this make the wrong guess about this all the time when I say, what's more important, picture or audio? A lot of people say picture. This is a visual medium, visual information. It's not true, actually. We can withstand a really messy, out of focus, shaky frame if we hear audio because we can follow the story. But if audio is screechy, hard to understand, doesn't matter how beautiful that picture is, it's just unbearable. So I want you from the get-go to be thinking that here's the tragedy that I have to tell you, though. The saddest thing I can tell you today is audio is the most important thing to pay attention to, and it's also the hardest thing to get right. So you want to be nervous, very nervous about audio. You want to be like me, and you want to have 4 audio recordings running for backup, at least 3. Definitely need some backups. You can think about external recorders or if you have like a proper camera, mics that plug directly into your video feed. You can think about lapel mics on your subjects. Or I wanted to show you what I've got. I've got smartphone microphones if I'm using a smartphone to film. Either microphones that are recording the whole entire room or microphones that might wirelessly through Bluetooth link to a lapel mic. These are the two that I have. You can see a pretty big budget spread there. But if you're going to spend money on anything during this process, I would recommend first and foremost to drop some bucks on a good audio solution. This is so important. It is so hard to get right, so easy to mess up. This is the thing that's really going to take a little bit of practice. So if I'm scaring you, that's good because it's not easy to to I can't emphasize how important this is. But the Holly Land solution is actually, this is like a fabulous little audio solution that I've been using for many years, and I've been really happy with it. I do have a fancy Rode, but you know what? They don't sound that different. So think about this. Put this on your list. Think about my audio solution. There are other things you can think. There's a million ways to spend your money on film equipment. You can also get a lot of this stuff really cheap. Tripods, different kinds of battery extenders. I have all this stuff also specifically for smartphone filmmaking, which has been useful. It makes the process easier. But really, if you've got your audio solution and some kind of good image capture, probably in your smartphone, you're going to be fine for now if you're beginning. I have gone through so much gear, so many different cameras, so many different audio solutions, so many different piles of wires that I've flown around the world with. And you will too once you start doing this. It's going to just take time to figure out your gear solution and your kind of production solution. Okay, I'm whistling along. I'm going really fast here just to keep giving you sort of a masterclass overview. But now we have to talk about something also incredibly important, especially in the nonfiction editing space, nonfiction filmmaking space. Editing. Editing is the craft of placing images in a sequence that adds up into a narrative experience that is more than the sum of its parts. Each image alone has meaning, but placed together in a sequence, they take on even more significance. If there are any film nerds in here, I'm talking about the Kuleshov effect, very interestingly studied over the years. But anyway, I'll keep pushing here. I want to underscore again that especially with nonfiction filmmaking, you're going to get a lot of footage. You can't predict what's going to happen once you start rolling tape, right? Life does not unfold in a neat narrative driven way. You got to work with what you have. You might have to go back and get more, even if you think you're done filming. Or you might rewrite your idea according to what you filmed. Be adaptable, stay creative, stay open-minded. Remember, you're going to make your film 3 times. Once in development, second time in production, third time in post-production. In fact, you might make it 5 times, several times in post-production, if you're anything like me. In terms of, there's so many different platforms for editing. Of course, there's like the fancy professional complicated ones like DaVinci, Premiere Pro, Final Cut. Don't worry about buying any of that stuff. You can use iMovie, which is inbuilt on Mac platforms. CapCut is free. You can also kind of upgrade it a little and get CapCut Pro. It's not too much money per year. Canva also, you can edit in Canva now. And these all editing programs, I think I can say this, even if it's in a vertical aspect ratio and like Instagram Reels or something, they all have the basic user interface that is essentially the same. You've got your media library of your footage to choose from. You've got your timeline where you see your video clips and your audio clips there with the waveform. And then your monitor, your workspace, where you see what you're putting together and you can play it and play it back for yourself as you're going along. So every single editing program you're going to see is going to look like this. It'll just have more or less buttons, more or fewer inbuilt effects and filters and fancy stuff. But this day and age, editing is far, far less mysterious to the general public as it has been historically, because visual storytelling is just becoming so incredibly crucial. Just remember, guys, be patient with yourself. This skill takes time to master. There are always more cool, amazing things you can learn through tutorials. You will watch what you are making approximately 5.37 billion times. You'll get sick of it. You won't be able to see it anymore because you've seen it so many times. You're gonna have to recruit, sorry, typo. You're gonna have to recruit fresh eyes to keep watching it 2.7 million times. Because, and something fun, when you get fresh eyes and you may have someone watch what you've been working on, you'll get to borrow their fresh eyes because you'll feel self-conscious and your perspective will get clearer and fresher, as if you're seeing it in the early stages again. It's a nice little effect. So yeah, this is a team sport and it takes time to get right. So, but the more you do it, and actually I want to say editing is my favorite part of the whole process. I think it's the purest. I don't know, it's very purely artistic. You know, you have a picture in your mind and then it flows out your fingertips and you make it real. It is like an incredible creation process. And it is like the one where I at least am more likely to go into like a state of flow where I forget to eat or drink or pee or whatever for hours and hours on end. So editing is really fun. It just takes practice. And remember, guys, when you start putting your graphical elements on screen, like your any words on screen, stay on brand. Use your colors, use your fonts, use that logo. It makes a difference. It brings a cohesiveness and a coherence to the piece itself, but also it links the piece to your organization. Don't be shy. Throw your logo up in the corner, wherever it is. It's okay. Um, a little watermark. Oh, I talked to you guys about stock footage. I also want to talk to you really quick about music. There is a stunning amount of free music out there to use for your video projects. So, Ben Sound, for instance, is a wonderful website that has a ton of royalty-free music that you can choose from and then download for free. It's absolutely incredible. All sorts of feelings and moods and vibes from Ben Sound. Inspiring, industrial type of things. Groovy beats, reflective, etc. There's so many different kinds of free sounds to choose from. It's amazing. Moby, I don't know if you guys know Moby, the electronic artist. He came up with this amazing database to provide free instrumental music for creators. Any creators, all creators. Look at that. Thank you, Moby. 500 tracks for free with all sorts of different vibes that are labeled by vibe here. Atmospheric, dark, energetic, driving, pretty, melancholy, bittersweet, etc. Um, so you don't have to worry about buying a composer or writing music or stealing music. But I really recommend that you don't are very careful about using royalty-free music because otherwise your creation will get flagged on YouTube for copyright violation, and you don't want to do that. And you should also use royalty-free music from the beginning of your editing process because there's nothing worse than like using like a Beastie Boys song that you super love, and then you start cutting to the beat and you get attached to it, and then you have to switch it out for some lame royalty-free thing, and then it just doesn't sound as good anymore. Not all royalty-free music is lame, not at all, but you don't want to get it attached to something you can't use because that's very, very disappointing. Anyway, here we are. We made our piece. Woo! We did it. We made an awesome video. We watched it 5.37 billion times. We recruited fresh eyes. Our team is happy. Now we want actual eyeballs on the thing. What are we going to do? We have to go back to the decisions that we made at the beginning. Where were those people hanging out online? Where are they going to find your thing? Which aspect ratio did you choose? What are the steps to reaching out to your viewers and connecting to your audience? Maybe you're going to plaster it all over your website, your socials, embed it in your newsletter, share it around with friends or family. Like I mentioned, there's all sorts of different film festival options for promotional and marketing videos and stuff these days. If you're curious about that, by the way, I'll show you what many filmmakers use in order to research different kinds of festivals. Film Freeway. Here I am searching for student festivals, but if I want to look for promotional, usually if you're, I've got a bunch of things, clear filters. There we go. More marketing. Sometimes it takes a little while to find exactly what you wanted, but a lot of these festivals will have like branding video categories or something, and just to bring a little bit of notoriety after all your hard work. Why not? Or of course, maybe that's not your goal. But I won't spend any time on film festivals tonight because that's quite a bit of stuff to talk about. But here we are at the very last thing I wanted to share with you guys, actually. Because I've talked about this so fast, I just wanted to let you know that we have this e-course that can be available for you. It is not very costly because we're celebrating low budget and micro budget projects at my film company. So I'm just going to show you guys the teaser video real quick so you have an idea of what it is. We are So Far I Films, a production company and internship program based in Rome, Italy. We leverage the power of visual storytelling to invite people into new worlds and new ways of thinking. We are diverse people telling stories about diversity, pushing forward the film industry in front of the camera and behind it. Since we started in 2020, we built something awesome out of nothing, all because we taught ourselves all about the craft of low-budget documentary filmmaking. We've taken multiple documentaries through the film festival circuit, screened our media to live audiences around the world, and self-distributed our films to a variety of platforms. We've learned so much from our experiences in innovative, low-cost documentary filmmaking, and we want to invite you to join in on our journey. In this e-course on low-budget documentary filmmaking, we're going to guide you through the steps of creating impactful visual storytelling, from developing your idea to releasing your film to your target audience. Whether you're a first-time filmmaker or developing your third documentary feature, our production team will have key insights to making sure your film is picture lock ready. You'll learn about different types of film equipment, what editing software works best for you, and how to make sure you capture good audio. Filmmaking can seem pretty overwhelming, but you're not alone. We believe filmmaking is a team sport, and through So Far I Films, you'll have the best team members available to you to help you make a film you're proud of. In the Italian language, So Fare Films means I know how to make films. Pretty soon, you will too. Okay, so that's us. You can learn more about us at sofarifilms.com if you're interested. We have a little bit of time for questions. I guess the last thought that I want to leave you guys with, other than my email address, which I'll put in the chat right now, is one thing that we do, we say all the time at So Far I Films, is learn by doing. And that's certainly true for the video making process, the visual storytelling process. Just start. If you just decide I'm going to make this thing, you will learn so much the more you do it, on and on and on, and you can just really never stop learning about this fascinating, demanding, heartbreaking craft. So that's what I've got to give you guys today. Does anybody have... Ah, you couldn't watch the video. Really, was it not sharing?
I could see it. I think, I'm not sure if everybody could, but
I can make the slides available to you guys if you want to watch it later.
Tulay said he'll share it out too, the video.
Oh,
and
okay.
the
That
slides
sounds
on
good.
it.
That's good. Any questions, guys?
I had one question.
Mm-hmm.
When shooting something for, I guess, the vertical and horizontal format, what is the best shot? Or like, is it like, how would I position my camera?
Yeah, great question. So what I would do if I wanted a video project that I could adapt to both aspect ratios, I would keep everything in the center grid of the rule of thirds, so that you could simply crop the edges. Um, you can also film normally and have people sort of all over the frame if you want, but then you have to go through an editing process where you're sort of like selectively cropping later, and it can speed things along. It totally, as usual, depends on what you're making and what the vibe is and how you want the frame composition to come across. But start with the horizontal aspect ratio and crop to vertical later. And depending on your time frame and how quick you need to be, if you're like, well, I want to put them both out on the same day and I've got like a couple weeks to turn this around, then you need to make your kind of shot decisions during production to accommodate a fast turnaround for both aspect ratios. But if you have a little bit longer to spend time like cropping something that is, sort of bouncing around in the horizontal frame more, um, then you can be more free in your initial horizontal aspect ratio filming. I hope that makes sense. Is that clear?
Yeah, awesome.
Great.
Jen, I have a
Also,
quick question.
oh yeah, can I just add something that I was thinking?
Yeah, please.
If I can, I don't know if I can quickly find it for you guys. If I go to the account, hold on, I'm just going to see if I can find this real quick. We had a crowdfunding campaign for a film, and my team decided to our pitch video for our crowdfunding campaign was horizontal aspect ratio, and rather than do a cropped vertical version, we decided to create a video where it said we had a vertical thing that said turn here, and then people just flip their phone and then they can watch it horizontal aspect ratio on Instagram if you just instruct them to go ahead and turn the video. I'm trying to see if I can find the example. Ah, yeah, here it is. Yeah, so we had like a cute little kind of like turning like a turning icon. Um, I don't know if you guys can even see this, but oops, that's not even the right thing. But it seems like people kind of know what I'm talking about. So we said turn like this, and then people just turn it and they watch it in horizontal. So that's another option if you want to be free in your horizontal process and just ask people to move their freaking wrist. Oops, almost Greek there. That was close. Anyway, sorry, somebody had a question. Eli.
Yeah. Hi, quickly, Jen, thanks for this really thoughtful and informative conversation. I am primarily a photographer, which means that I default to 3 seconds in terms of aspect ratio. I'm curious, do you have a preferred aspect ratio, like for thirds or 16:9s, or another that you default to when you're making a film that allows you to respond in post to the most
Yeah,
flexibility?
I think, I'm not much of a gearhead, and so I started out just sort of going with whatever my camera sort of like default was, and I never found that to be like a huge problem for me. My cinematographer is like, should we go with 16:9 or 3:4? And I'm
Yeah.
always like, oh, I don't know. Um, so I I think if you're already thinking that way, then you probably are pretty well versed in this space. But I think by default, I always work in the horizontal space. I feel a little uncomfortable in the vertical space because I haven't had enough practice with it. So I tend to exist in 16:9 or 3:4, if that makes sense.
It does. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, there is a really important question over in the chat. Somebody asked, what's the minimum quality I recommend shooting in? I want to tell you guys 1080p default with your smartphones is fine. Do not bother with 4K for a couple reasons. Number one, uh, the screens that we watch are not 4K. The resolution of my fancy Mac laptop is 1080p. So even if somebody has filmed something in 4K, I cannot experience that quality on the screen that I watch the most. Another reason not to do 4K, it is a huge file. It will fill up your phone or your hard drive very fast. You'll have to spend a lot of money on external hard drives that are really big to accommodate your project, which also means it's going to take up a lot of buffing and rendering time in your editing program to input your 4K footage. So don't even bother. In fact, I output sometimes even at 720p or 510p because that looks fine on social media. So don't stress about high resolution. 1080p default is going to be just fine. You guys are super welcome to ask questions through Suleiman and Karen, or, drop me a line. I guess if you are interested in any of these e-courses, I can also get that, drop that in the chat space for you as well.
We can
I don't know,
include those
Suleiman or
in.
Karen, if you have any other recommendations before we
Yeah,
close
um,
up.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I can share any links, or I'll share the slides and the recording of this, as well as Jen's email if you have any questions for her. But just wanted to thank you. This was, like Eli said, very thoughtful and practical session. And
Cool.
thank you to, everyone who joined us. Really appreciate you guys taking the time. And it was awesome.
Fantastic, Jen. Thank you so much.
Great. I just want to be helpful. So that was my main goal today. I'm glad to hear that that was useful. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Have a great day, you guys. Thanks a lot for your
Thanks.
time.
Thank you.
Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.